I was making a recipe that needed a lot of lemons. So I just sent out a general email on the neighborhood email group and said, if anyone has extra lemons, could I please come get some? And everyone was like overwhelmingly, yes, like, come. And one woman in particular who lives 3 blocks over, let me know that just come by anytime, that she had so many lemons, and she was like, don't worry about it. Even if my car's not here, if I'm not home, just come on in the yard. So I didn't hesitate to do that. I took a lot of lemons, and so I thought I saw some movement in the house, so I just wanted to knock on the door and say thank you. And when I knocked on the door, the woman, I could see her through the window in the door. She was on the phone, and she was saying, no, I'm absolutely not going to open the door.
I had to park up the street from my house and got out of the car, walking, and it was less than half a block up, walking back. 2 women walking up the street, looked up, saw me coming down the street. They walked out into the middle of the street, walked down past a few cars until they got past me, and then came back onto the sidewalk. So by the time I got to the porch, I'm literally shaking because I just realized, what they just did.
I think it's a little bit unnerving to be walking the dog around the block and just knowing that there's probably someone across the street in their house just looking at you thinking, what are they doing there? Why are they there? And I'm always, every single day when I'm just out of the car or out of the house, just on the street somewhere, I just think I don't really want to be here right now. It's a little uncomfortable.
Neighbors for Racial Justice formed, it's been a couple of years now, and it formed out of this need for better communication. I think on the listservs, whether it's Nextdoor or the individual neighborhood Google groups that we have going, there seems to be a lack of moderation around the profiling that was done through these emails.
Well, the profiling you hear, you'll see it on, say, the Glenn Friends website. African American, 5'10", medium build, bald, clean shaven or beard. And the first thing I think about is that sounds like me.
The kinds of emails, or they call them high crime alert messages that come across on the neighborhood listserv, sometimes the descriptions are so general and vague. It'll just say, there's a black man or a brown-skinned woman, walking slowly by my house. Be on the alert for suspicious activity. And I'm like, it could be me walking to the grocery store.
The scenario I'm concerned about is someone, looks out their window, sees a person of color that they don't recognize, and or they're just, having a bad day, or they're nervous about something, or they're off their meds or whatever, and they decide to call the police and or private security. And then that's just not, the potential, the risk, of being stopped by the police is not, it's not risk-free, and it's not something that, any person of color would want to be exposed to unless it was absolutely necessary.
My biggest fear is someone actually calling the police on me, and then here I am running through the neighborhood early in the morning, and you just don't know what'll happen. You think the worst sometimes.
There have been a few neighbors that have said, I absolutely agree with you, and they've warned me, just don't engage the crazy that's out there. But, it's hard not to, because when I see something that goes out to the entire neighborhood, my first impulse is to counterbalance that.
If you have very fearful people who are posting and becoming more afraid, and they're heavily armed, there's real potential for them to get worse and harm themselves or someone else. And there's no monitoring of that. There's a presumption that if you're posting about this, that you're sort of not the criminal.
I don't wear a hoodie. I don't put, when I leave in the morning to go run, sometimes I used to put my hoodie on. But if I know I'm not parked directly in front of the house and I have to walk up the block to get to my car, I won't put my hoodie on.
I don't wear my hoodie up in the neighborhood. I don't walk. Even the grocery store is 2 blocks away. I drive to the store. I think it absolutely has changed my patterns of walking. I go to the park to walk. I don't walk here.
I think Nextdoor is making a real mistake in sort of their format, in that they allow you to sell stuff and they allow you to talk about crime. And I think if you're talking about building community, there's no section for education, for family, for a dialogue about how do we create a safe space for teenagers? How do you transition teenagers to being adults and let them make mistakes without being incarcerated?
You'll hear, can you be a little bit more specific, not so generic on the description? Can you tell us what the suspicious behavior was? Why did you think this person, was doing something in the neighborhood that they shouldn't be here? And what you end up with is this hostility because, another black person might respond and basically then they're attacked on the email string of, are you being too sensitive, hypersensitive about, what we're saying?
I would suggest that people start by describing the suspicious behavior. What is it that seems out of line? What's the cause for concern? So you think someone's casing your house, can you describe that versus starting with some kind of fear-based description of, oh, there's a big black man and he's walking by my house. I mean, a person has every right to walk in front of your house, right? So I would say consider your neighbors of color. Make sure that you're not describing one of them, just going about their daily actions, because if the cops were to be called on us, you're putting our safety in danger.
They just use a generic suspicious behavior. And personally, I would like to know what is that suspicious behavior, because if I'm part of the neighborhood and I'm going to be looking out for suspicious behavior, I want to be able to validate what you saw.
It's important to just be aware of the fact that you making this call can bring harm to someone else. So I would start there. Second, there are more and more, I guess you call it guidelines or checklists, information's coming out that some of it provided by the police about how to properly report, incidents, if you will, and that typically focus on behavior.
But what I've noticed a lot is people don't even look me in the face. So if you don't look me in the face, you can't even give a proper description of what I look like. So I think that lends to the generic profiling, because people aren't looking at people. They're just seeing a silhouette. Yeah.
I mean, I moved here from the South and I didn't have these kinds of experiences there. To move to such a diverse area, the Bay Area is known to have such a wonderfully culturally and ethnically diverse community, and to have these kinds of experiences, it's just unthinkable. I'm shocked, I'm saddened, and I'm starting to get resentful. I'm starting to think I need to move.